it's insane to see how passionate you are about life insurance. Talk to us a little bit about it.
I got into the industry because of that mentor I told you about.
Yeah.
Because he gave me the whole 10-3-1 bit and said, the sky's the limit, work as much, work as little, make as much, make as little as you want. And I loved it. That's the reason I got into the business. Ambition was a big thing driving it. I stayed in the business for very different reasons. Ambition is still a very big part of it, don't get me wrong. I still believe what he told me 24 years ago still holds good today. There is no ceiling or limitations in terms of income or time. So this is still true. This still holds true. However, I delivered my first claim check about 9 months into the business to a person who passed away at the age of 32. I remember everything about this guy. He worked with a company in Ajman. I was desperate to make the sale. I went to see him. I borrowed money to get taxi fare to go to Ajman. I closed the deal, and a few months later, he called me up several times to see him again. There was no business on the table. There was no money on the table. And I didn't have a car or a license. There was a limitation. I must have made about $400 on this whole deal at best. And he needed to see me really badly, and I didn't have the time. And I said, I will come back and see you as soon as I can. And I never made the time. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from his wife telling me that he passed away. And he passed away due to a terminal tumor. So the insurance company, of course, settled the claim. I was the person that delivered the check. But I met his wife for the first time, and she was pregnant. And the reason he was trying to call me was so that I could change the beneficiaries on the policy to reflect just his wife and not his wife and his mother as he had initially planned out. I didn't make the time to see him. And back in the day, this wasn't digital. This required me to show up with a physical form, sign, stamp, notarize, submit. Maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, the change is reflected. I didn't show up and do my job. And as a result, his mom took 50% of that small life insurance policy that should have gone to his wife and his unborn child. That was on me. That was a massive failure on my part. And I stayed in the business with the intention of, ensuring that I don't never repeat a mistake like that anymore. And while the financials around it were very important, what I delivered had to be on point. And that's what changed over the years. Wow. With the life insurance part of it, I mean, if you ask me today, a lot of people ask me randomly now because of all the posts we're putting out, do you think it's for everyone? The honest truth is I don't know. The reality is if today, the way to find out whether life insurance is right for you or not is honestly, there are so many online calculators. Yeah. It takes you less than 5 minutes of inputting data into this online system that tells you to the last cent what should your right level of life insurance cover be, and if it's relevant to you or not. It's as simple as that.
Right.
You don't need a financial advisor or a life insurance consultant telling you all of this stuff. But where the advisor becomes relevant is when an individual decides he's seen the number, he agrees or disagrees with it, but he or she may procrastinate on putting it in place, may decide not to buy something. I've realized over the I'm 45 years old today. When I started out, my clients were in their 20s. Today, they're in their 40s, just like I am. And the difference between my 20s and my 40s is I'm seeing a lot more claims today. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more critical illness claims today. In the last 3 months, we saw 2 critical illness claims. People that I know to be physically fit, but, random, heart attack, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, one of the guys over there was a crazy story. We forced him 8 years ago to purchase an additional cover because he had 3 kids. And he was unsure he wanted to do this because his medicals turned out bad. The insurance company decided to charge him a higher premium. We forced him to do it. And I told him, you've got a cooling period of 30 days. So buy the life insurance policy, go on your holiday. And when you come back, if you still decide you don't need the policy, cancel it. He went on that trip. And in the 8 days after he left on that trip, he had his first heart attack. If we didn't force him, if I didn't arm twist him to purchase it, right now when his kids are in university, this would have been he would have been in a seriously bad place. So while I know that these online platforms and these calculators are very relevant because you don't have to be forced sold something, you know the right number, you still need that human interaction and someone to put the whole emotional side of it and share with you the years of case studies of working with people where things worked out and where things didn't work out, for you to have some idea of, listen, am I doing this or not? Yeah. Should I do this or not? Unfortunately, AI and technology and everything else, while they're all very relevant, don't get me wrong, can be a tool to an advisor and a client, but it can't be the end proposition.
Yeah.
Humans one-on-one still mean everything. I mean, we have training programs with Inner Fight, and most of the stuff from me is plugged on Training Peaks. But there is a regular check-in with Tom, with my coach. When you coached me, you checked in on a regular basis and said, hey, how are you doing? What's going on over here? Why? It was an accountability of sorts. It was a way for me to, even just hear myself speak and think about all the reasons why I should or should not be doing this. And I think it's the same in every field. I don't think life insurance is any different from that. It's just that the implication of not doing it or the opportunity to do it right may not come around again. And that could be the difference between financial well-being or
not
hustling.
As your careers progressed, Rickson, and obviously your age progresses as well, and you start to, you put it quite well that some of the clients that you sold to or took care of their health insurance when you were younger, I would imagine in your 20s, there was very limited connection between, like, that policy was just to make the 10-3-1 rule.
Sure.
To prove it right.
Absolutely.
You probably never sat there thinking, holy shit, maybe in 20, 24 years, this guy might have a critical illness. He might die. So really, my question here is, you're in a really interesting business because you're dealing with people now where priorities are completely changing, where critical illness, in some cases, unfortunately, death is a real. How do you think that's affecting you as an individual?
It's tough. It's tough because over a period of the last 24 years, you build relationships. They're no longer, while they may have begun as being part of the 10-3-1 rule, and you're right, in your 20s, you have this feeling of immortality. Who's thinking about death or critical illness or even retirement is such a long way off, You're not thinking about those things. But as time goes by and you're seeing these people, these clients have been with me now for over almost 2.5 decades, right?
That's crazy. In
some cases, I may have been the first person that saw their newborn baby in a hospital, right? It's the case. And today some of the kids are in university and they know me as the guy, from the yesteryears. Who showed up at their house at some odd hours in a suit with a briefcase discussing life insurance and all these boring things where the kids were made to go in a room. Sure. But today, it's all that relationship, over those 20, 24 years that adds this certain level of complexity to it. We lost somebody as a client, in that COVID period, and it had the worst impact on me because I realized that yes, financially, we could keep our promises to the client's family. It was done in less than 2 weeks. Everything was sorted out. But that client's spouse, who was a homemaker, as a housewife, and the older son just went to university in London. The daughter was in a school in Dubai. His wife didn't know how to manage the money. She didn't know the difference between a debit card and a credit card. And after he passed away, while there was a ton of money coming out from the insurance proceeds, she still needed somebody to hold her hand through the entire succession process, which had nothing to do with me, by the way. It's about the property being transferred to her name. It's about the cars being transferred to her name. It's about dealing with the bank and the mortgage and the insurance associated with the mortgage. It's been 2 years. And hopefully in the span of the next week, this process of her receiving all those assets is done, but I couldn't just plug out after I paid the claim. I am still a relevant part of their life. If she's having a bad moment today, she'll give me a call and she'll tell me, listen, I don't know how to deal with this. And my job over there is not as a life insurance advisor, as a consultant, but just as a human being, is to connect her to the right resources that can help. So to be fair, it's very difficult in my space if you approach this correctly. And by that I mean, I'm in the industry of lifelong relationships. Longevity is a big part of what I do, not just from a health and well-being standpoint, but from a relationship standpoint today. We only enter into relationships today, not because of the 10-3-1 formula, but if we think that there is a lifetime connect with the client. I've got this qualifier or this disqualifier. It's, can I call you home to with my family for dinner? Is our work together going to be beyond just a transaction? If the answer to that is yes, then we will do stuff together. And that is a rule for me for life now. It's not just for business. It's with relationships, it's with clients, it's with people that I may hire on my team. The real factor is over here. Apart from everything else, does it look great on CV? Is the business proposition right? Yes, yes, yes. But can I call you home to my family for a meal?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then we can do something together. And if the answer is no, then we're not doing stuff together. Because in my line of work, we earn a commission.
Yeah.
And the commission gets paid in the first couple of years of being sold the product, of selling the product. But if you dislike this individual at the outset, what's the guarantee or what's the probability of you showing up with that check that you promised to deliver years after this individual is no longer around? You didn't like him or her from the beginning. And now you've got to show up for their family and make good on the promise. That might be a difficult ask. Yeah. But to be fair, emotionally, if we go through a situation, critical illness, I know when I've done right by my clients and they've received the payout, it's easier for me to deal with because they're around. We've taken care of them financially. They have a way to mend it. It's fine. Death is a whole different thing. Yeah. And I think there are two professions in the world which may be challenging. One is that of a dentist because, for obvious reasons, they start their day by looking into someone else's mouth. And one is me. I start my morning by having morbid conversations with people about, longevity, death. And it's a real truth, though, that at some point, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when this happens. The emotional setback for me is huge. It takes me a while to recover from a situation like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not just a client. It's a client who may have met me 3 or 4 times a year for 10 years.
Yeah.
I know their kids. I know their family. I know their parents. They invite me to their 40th birthday. When they have kids, I'm at the hospital. It's a relationship. It's difficult. Yeah. It's a relationship that turns into friendship very quickly.
Yeah.
Work ends up being 20% or 25% of the conversation. The rest is actually what's relatable to us, what's happening in our kids' lives, what's happening in our professional and personal lives, in our health,